Hi, this is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Welcome to my Star Atlas Week in Review podcast. This is podcast number 154. Any articles or videos mentioned can be found on my website at intergalacticherald.com. Just look for news, weekly recap newsletter 202. Anyways, just a quick summary of things that happened this past week in Star Atlas. Some posts in the Foundation Room related to prioritization of different products. There was an Atlas Brew this past week where they talked about Holosim and C4. I'm recording this on Friday, so actually I'm not breaking news, but normally I don't talk about things that happened in the short term, but there was an announcement of some layoffs of Star Atlas, so I'll talk about that briefly. And then there was a follow-up in the Foundation Room kind of talking about funding and things like that. So anyways, before we get to that, just mention some of my projects within Star Atlas. First, of course, is my website, intergalacticherald.com. It's a great Star Atlas resource website with guides, directories, recaps, and the Discord news feeds, where if you had signed up to it, you would have actually already got an email about the announced layoffs. So plugging that tool if you want to not have to check the Discord all the time, but actually get emails sent to you. Also, I do have a Star Atlas merch store at intergalacticgear.com. Not a lot of selection, a little bit static on that, but if you're interested in a Star Atlas mug and you're in the United States where I'm shipping, please check that out at intergalacticgear.com. So let's go ahead and get into the content. And again, I'm kind of doing this in the order that it occurred, even though the bigger news is at the end. But, again, just sort of how I go through things. So earlier this week, Michael Wagner posted in the Foundation Room to someone's question about the Fleet Command. And for people who are not familiar with, Fleet Command is going to be a part in the UE5 version of the game where you kind of get the web version, the Sage interface for the supply chain. So you basically go in and out within one software, in this case, Unreal Engine 5. So the answer, though, was it has been deprioritized, but still in the roadmap. So that's first I've heard of in a while, kind of where Fleet Command is on the grand scheme of things there. So next thing was the past Wednesday, the Atlas Brew occurred. It was it was a mix between kind of thinking about the future and talking about that, but then interspersing with some current things. So a couple interest and even some history. One interesting note that was brought up was that Holosim was actually intended to be a tutorial for C4, but with some of the delays in getting C4 out, it became a realization it could become its own product. So that's sort of where it came out. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. The other thing they were kind of talking about, and again, keeping in mind this is a Wednesday thing when it occurred, not the Friday when the announcements of the layoffs. They noted that one thing they want to change in kind of their development is wanted to deploy faster, and using that kind of phrase within development, fail faster and fix it. I'm not sure if, again, this is kind of a response to 2025 that there really wasn't any products. So again, but that was an interesting thing. They were also talking a little bit in the future. They were talking about the idea of having maybe your own AI agent bot who could kind of play 24/7 on your behalf, which again, kind of interesting to me. Near the end, they did talk about one of the changes that did occur this past week, which was on Sage moving, or I guess many things, moving away from the Starcom V2, which again, say these words, it's a system, a server. I'm not up on the nuances of all this, but they moved from the Starcom server to, quote, direct RPC connections. And first time I actually was mentioned, one of the reasons they decided to move to that, even though there's been some issues with the other connection method, is this was the first time I actually heard the word cost mentioned. So apparently Starcom V2 cost is the largest expense on something. Now, again, this was spoken on Wednesday. Then they had layoffs, which, of course, layoffs is one way to reduce costs. So putting those two things together, coincidence, doesn't seem like it. I think, again, if you have a very large technology you're paying for and you could get rid of it, you get rid of it. So, and then the last thing, and it was almost totally over my head, but it was a concept of spatial querying, something like there's just so much data on the blockchain with playing a game that you can't see everything. So maybe you'll see things close to where you are, but not as further out. Anyway, so just again, total mix of talking about future of the games, what the games are currently happening, concepts they might want to do. So it was eclectic. Is that the right word? I'm not sure. But Atlas Brew was all over the map. But again, definitely liking kind of this new style, which even more so once we get to the layoffs. Hearing lots of things from, well, bluntly, people that are in the trenches building this stuff, managing this stuff. So anyways, yeah, it was pretty interesting. So I've been kind of alluding to it. So at some point, I think at least my time, Friday afternoon, was announced on the announcement channel that there were some layoffs. Two people were definitely mentioned, which are, again, more of the community team, so / other roles, but definitely started with the community team. So that would have been Jose, the lore writer, and Dominic Vane, who was kind of community manager, senior, and then became marketing manager. So unfortunately, those two people were laid off. The message is kind of vague. If there were others, we'll see if any that comes out in the Foundation Room post going forward. So unsure, but definitely in conjunction with the departure of Santi, the community, well, I can't forget everybody's titles. So, but yeah, so that was definitely big news and things like that. And I'll kind of talk more about what that news to me at least means. And then I'll kind of segue into the next section and then related to some funding. And because again, it was stated that the layoffs were due to not having enough revenue. Michael Wagner did post a very long message about some of the funding questions and things like that. So I don't think I'm going to read it word for word, but I kind of jumped through it. But again, let's kind of get to the next section. So let's kind of look at the week in review and then kind of talk about the state of Star Atlas going forward. So, but again, we're kind of going chronological order when information came out. So yeah, on the state of development, it was interesting that the Fleet Command was mentioned, but as soon as it was mentioned, it was kind of like, yeah, duh. They've been pretty upfront about they need to get this C4 product done. Obviously, C4 runs on Zinc, and so that's been a priority. So we have been seeing developments in UE5. In fact, I think this week a couple more patch notes even came out. So definitely pushing out way more versions of the UE5 game, but kind of, I'm going to call it separate games, even though physically they're in the same thing. Fleet Command does feel like something that would be way down the road now. So anyways, I think that's good. Overall, the Atlas Brew was fine. I listened to it out of order. I heard about the layoffs and then listened to the Atlas Brew. So overall, I still think it was a great brew, but kind of hard to because since they're all out of sequence, really listen and go, I wonder who knew when, what, and, things like that. So, yeah, anyways. So, Big Meat, of course, is talking about the layoffs and then kind of this understanding of the funding. So, yeah, I mean, on a individual level, people level, yeah, I mean, getting laid off, whether it's yourself or someone else, I mean, yeah, it's just rough. It's sad. There's just nothing. Yeah, I mean, what can you say? But I think if you do have to step back and think about it kind of objectively, and I've mentioned a few times on podcasts, Michael Wagner has been pretty upfront about lack of revenue and how that's affecting development time and things like that. So, I don't know if we'll ever know or if it even matters why today was the day to cut back some revenue. Again, like I kind of speculated, if StarCom 2 was eating up a large line item on the budget and they're going to move away from it anyways, yeah, kind of makes sense. Just pull the plug on it and, yeah, save money. So, yeah, and Michael Wagner's been upfront. I mean, development is related to resources, and resources related to how much money you have to pay for those resources. So, again, as much as I think there's the shock of this, because if you've been around Star Atlas for a long time, multiple years ago, of course, they had the gigantic layoff where I think it was 70% of the staff was laid off, downsized. Now, potentially more. Again, we've only heard two names. But I think the bigger issue is if you just look and analyze kind of the departments. And so, unfortunately, paid community members, I guess, I assume the mods have to stay around to monitor the Discord, but they weren't paid to begin with. But, the team that seemed to exist with Santi and Dominic and Jose doesn't exist anymore, though. I think, where did I see that? No, yeah, I was in the post that Jose might put out a PIP or something like that. So, but again, just looking at this as from a org chart level, community team, paid team gone, lore writer gone, marketing gone. They're not involved in the game development. I mean, no game, you don't need those departments. I mean, yes, lore is important, but if you don't have a game, you don't need lore. You don't have a game, you don't have anything to market. If you don't have a game, you don't need a community. So, I mean, strictly saying if you have to, well, again, we haven't heard or may never hear why now. What was the criteria to make this happen, end of January? Yeah, I mean, these are departments that can be cut, and they were cut before. If I remember correctly, the entire marketing department was cut in the big thing. So, I mean, and I think if I remember correctly, there was like 10 plus people working on just the Never Alone campaign, if you remember what that was. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard on a individual level, but from a company decision, I mean, they don't have a revenue stream. Our $10, $20 a month passes aren't going to go only so far. And yeah, so, I mean, it's rough, but it's business. Yeah. So, the future funding. So yes, Michael Wagner again posted to someone in the foundation room. And I'm just going to paraphrase because I have to say I'm actually tired tonight. I'm sorry. It's just, yeah. And again, I guess on a just purely personal level, I mean, this isn't fun. I want to play a game. Again, I feel for the guys. I really do. But I mean, I just want a video game. And so it's not, this is the part of business that, games are games and you just want to play a game. You don't want to have to worry about people's paychecks and things like that. But again, it's also a business. So yeah. Anyways, yeah. So it was mentioned again about kind of comparing Star Atlas a little bit to Star Citizen and how they're kind of working over the years. But I think Michael Wagner brought up a really good point that they're comparable in some cases, but completely different business models in the sense of that was crowdfunding and this is sort of having some unique sorry, I gotta scroll on my screen. There we go. That's better. Now I can read the whole word. Sorry. Yeah. And again, I think he actually framed it in the right way that unlike Star Citizen, they have unique challenges, but they also have different value propositions, i.e. the use of NFTs and blockchain. The idea with, in fact, he mentions they're on a railroad economy, a real cash economy, and they're depressed financial incentives. But again, he always leaves on the thing that, again, you build an attractive product to use, both for the gameplay and then the financial layer too. He did say, again, the product cash flow right now is from token sales, which he doesn't like, but that's how it is. The long-term strategy was to transition to a fee generation from the marketplace, but with depressed daily active users and transaction volumes quite low. And they didn't even realize they were getting royalty fees from selling crew on Tensor. So again, but he mentioned that was small right now. He does look forward or toward the Zinc actually having different options. Some of them as emissions as a validator on that. There's even talk of some license deal for the validators. But anyway, it says he doesn't really rely upon token sales. The primary strategy is to leverage hype in the airdrop to drive Star Atlas activity and to, in turn, drive revenue. Zinc has other potential revenue sources through namespace and other things. And he mentioned they had talked about raising capital before. So, if nothing else, even though I understand that not every question gets answered, but when Michael Wagner does decide to answer questions, they are, doesn't feel like he's holding anything back that he's really sharing with the community. So, yeah, so things that we've kind of always known that their primary revenue stream was supposed to be ship sales and fees and things like that, and now they're having to rely on token sales. And all this could change if you get a product and people enjoy the product because those products have these built-in revenue streams. So, yeah, it is what it is. And like I said, just doesn't feel like a good day, but also doesn't feel like a shock. It's just one of those things that has to happen. So don't want to leave on a negative or positive note, but did want to kind of just give a quick thought on the future Star Atlas. And I think it's pretty much been said many times, but I guess it's just needs to be said again. A lot of people are going to go, what's the runway? What's the runway? And again, Michael Wagner said it. It's indefinite. And what he meant by that, and I think he said this, but now it's pretty clear, is in order to increase runway, you decrease costs. And in this case, staff. Yeah, maybe you can reduce some fees for technology, hosting, StarCon too, but employees have salaries. Hopefully there was benefits packages too. So again, this all adds up, and none of it makes the game happen tomorrow. So get down to your core resources, core staff that you have to build things, and that's the staff you keep until the bitter end. And I'm sure if they needed to cut more, they would cut staff related to products and focus on one or two products. So, I guess we should be kind of reading between the lines of the fact that HoloSim still is going to come out and C4 is still going to come out. There's still an economy and things like that. So I don't have any insider information on how the org charts arrange. So, but yeah, you could see just you prune the things that don't go back to that core. So the spin, I guess, if there is one, is that this concept of an indefinite runway is based on how much resource you have to pay out. And if you pay out less, you can keep building the game longer. So again, I guess we'll just have to see, also see how we all feel in the next couple of days, but not to be too whatever, but it's like, what else do you do? If reducing staff is one way to keep building the product, you reduce staff. So just leave it at that. And then just last point, just talking about my journey playing Star Atlas. So continuing with what I'm doing, which is trying to gain some ZXP. Still hoping to craft a Mamba X, but it just takes a long time. So, to do the current command. So for the past week, just still moving back. I'm moving back nitrogen with my big fleet and mining silica, I think, with the little miner guy. He's almost, I think, to the point where I've had enough of silicate, but haven't been tracking daily things, but closer to the end than the beginning. So so just monitoring that, monitoring my ZXP, kind of keep slightly going up the leaderboard each day, maybe one place. So that's kind of cool. But just kind of status quo. Didn't really seem like the Sly Assistant got affected by the RPC changes. They got a reboot, but could also been a Chrome update. I'm not sure. So so just doing that. So anyways, it's kind of the week. Again, not the funnest Star Atlas news, but just part of business. Has nothing to do with games. It's business. So just to wrap up again, totally open if anybody wants to be a guest on the podcast. Please check out intergalacticherald.com. You can go to my merch store and buy a mug. Yeah, I know. Why would you? But do check out my website, Intergalactic Herald. Has a lot of great resources, guides, directories, recaps. Of course, promoting the Discord newsfeed only because you would have gotten an email like I did around 2:00 my time when the announcement was posted. So other than that was this week in Star Atlas. I'm Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Have a great week ahead.